At the back end of September, Wizkids announced 4 new sets for Dice Masters that are going to be released in 2021. This is the third instalment of our preview and speculation series, and in today's video, we're going to take a look at the Fantastic Four vs Galactus.
Wild assumption. And speculation. Now.
Yes, super exciting time in the world of Dice Masters with a whole other year of Dice Masters goodies for us to sink our teeth into. And we all know how this goes with the way release schedules are and delays and so on and so forth. It's probably a whole other 2 years of Dice Masters stuff for us to sink our teeth into. We've already done 2 installments on this series already. If you're interested, we've done a Marvel Dice Masters Secret Wars vid and a Marvel Dice Masters House of X vid. Today is going to be looking at the third Marvel Dice Masters set on that list of announced new sets, which is Fantastic Four vs Galactus, and then hopefully this side of the new year we'll take a look at the one and only DC Dice Masters set, Superman Kryptonite Crisis. Might be just into the new year, depending on how my next couple of weeks pan out for recording and such like. But if this is the first video you're ever watching, a little note on the structure. So the first thing we're going to do is take a look at the solicits information and the press release information to see what nuggets and facts we can draw down from that, see if there's anything exciting in there to give us a sense of what the set will look and feel like, and you know, the headline stuff, estimated release date, price, etc, etc. Then we're going to move on to a little bit of Fantastic Four comic book lore, which will lead us into the speculation game, a very popular pastime of Dice Masters players where we try and guess what character cards we may be seeing in that set. And I'll stress it's going to be guess. It's all hypothetical, just using my knowledge of the Fantastic Four comic books to inform what I think might be coming down the pipeline, with a little bit of interpretation of some of the clues that's in the solicits information. So there you go. That's what the video is going to be all about. And, well, let's not delay. Let's get into it, shall we? Okay then, solicits information and press release information and so on and so forth. So let's start by taking a quick look at the PowerPoint slide that was used at the Alliance Distribution Open House by Wizkids. You can see it on the screen there now. I really struggle with this whole mirroring thing. Loads of interesting information in here. It is listed as solo play, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment. It's listed as an intro set, and the recommended retail price is $29.99, $30 basically. It doesn't say on the slide there now, but on the Wizkids Solicits page, it's currently listed for June next year, which is interesting because it's the same time as the release of Secret Wars. Whether that's intended as a simultaneous release so that there's a starter kind of thing for solo players to pick up at the same time as buying draft packs, I'm not sure. But what we do know from some information that was given to us by Wizkids' marketing team at the time the announcement went out is they said that the solo play kind of aspect of it there is that it's an intro set designed for new players and has a solo play setup geared towards introducing them to the game. That's a paraphrased quote. It appears that there's going to be a solitaire set of rules in the game, but what we do know is that it's going to include a single set of sidekick dice, a single set of basic action dice, probably a paper dice bag, you know, all the stuff to get a individual single player started with the game, in addition to the Fantastic Four vs Galactus themed cards. What we do also know, what has been indicated quite strongly, is that the cards in the set will work both for the wider experience of playing Dice Masters as a constructed Dice Masters player, but will also be playable in a solitaire kind of situation. Now, what that actually looks and feels like, we don't know. We've not had any further information on that. Let me give you the solicits information here. It says, for the first time ever, experience solo play in Dice Masters with this incredible Dice Masters adventure in a box. Get started with the Fantastic Four and see if you're able to defeat Galactus. Ramp up the difficulty and see if you can beat him at full strength. Featuring Mr. Fantastic, Human Torch, The Thing, Invisible Woman, Doctor Doom, and more of the favourites from the world's greatest comic magazine. Stay tuned for more information on this exciting new format. So that's all we've got so far. That's all we've got. Very different in terms of the solicits and press release information for the other sets, because we had all the kind of standard draft pack blurb in there. So we don't know how many cards are going to be included. We don't know how many characters. They've not told us how many dice are going to be included in the set. We have very little information to run on, other than it's an intro starter set. It's got a solo play element there. There's some hints in the solicits information about see if you're able to defeat Galactus, which would imply you're playing against the game, and Galactus is the end goal there. Also, this element of ramping up the difficulty, so perhaps you can. Who knows? But there's obviously ways you can increase the challenge of defeating Galactus, and then a list of characters that they've indicated are going to be in the set. So not a lot to go on, but certainly super exciting, particularly if you're out and about trying to introduce new people to the game, and you in the kind of overwhelming course of all the releases, you're trying to find something to kind of point to and say, there you go, that'll get you started. So really exciting on that front, and also lots and lots of excitement to get Fantastic Four cards back in the game after they only appeared very briefly in Avengers vs X-Men when it was first released, and then disappeared due to various licensing things and whatnot. So there you go, there's the solicits information. That's what we know so far. Let's move on to talk a little bit about Fantastic Four comic book lore. So somewhat of a slightly different approach, I suppose, to this one. Whereas the other Marvel Dice Masters sets that have been announced, Secret Wars and House of X, clearly align themselves to a storyline event in the Marvel Universe. The Fantastic Four Vs Galactus, the solicits information is less precise, and there's less kind of exact clues as to what Galactus encounter they may focus this on, although there is one sort of a clue that I'll talk about in a second. Certainly Galactus has appeared as an antagonist for the Fantastic Four many times over, and many others of the Earth's mightiest heroes in the Marvel Universe as well. So it could just be a very broad thematic set. If I was a betting man, I think it's going to be just broadly themed around the Fantastic Four and Galactus. So I'll start with the Fantastic Four themselves. They're made up of Mr. Fantastic, the Human Torch, the Thing, and the Invisible Woman. That is Reed Richards, Johnny Storm, Ben Grimm, and Sue Storm, respectively. Reed Richards and Sue Storm are married, and the story goes that Reed Richards is like super mad scientist kind of dude who creates this amazing starship project to go and explore space, but he finds out that the government are going to defund the project, so in the middle of the night he sneaks into the launch center, gets into his rocket and takes it into space. And of course, naturally, because he's heading off on a dangerous scientific experimental expedition into outer space, he takes his girlfriend at the time, which is Sue Storm, and her brother Johnny Storm, who's a teenager. And his busy mate from university, which is Ben Grimm, who fortunately happens to also be an Air Force test pilot as well, because that's what you do, when you're going on these crazy jaunts into space on experimental technology spaceships. You take your missus and her little brother, obviously. And while in space exploring this thing, they get caught in this cosmic storm. And upon return to Earth, they discover that the cosmic storm has somehow imbued them with these incredible powers, these fantastic powers, if you will. So Mr. Fantastic he's got these like kind of elastic stretchy thing going on. Johnny Storm can turn himself into this kind of human flame ball, hence the name the Human Torch. Ben Grimm turns into this rock-like, super strong, invulnerable fella, and Sue Storm, the Invisible Woman, can turn invisible and create force fields. And that's the Fantastic Four. That's who they are and what they're all about. First, itchy eye, give that a scratch. First appeared in 1961, a very popular and large part of the kind of superhero renaissance in the Silver Age of comic books, which happened at the sort of back end of the 50s into the 70s there. Written by Stan Lee, illustrated by Jack Kirby, although he contributed to the storylines as well, who were an enormously influential pair of comic book creators who... their work still very much informs what comic comic books are all about and look and feel about even today. And Galactus himself, he first appeared a little while later in 1966 in what's largely called the Galactus trilogy, which is a 3-issue event, issue 48, 49, and 50, and that's when he first appeared. Now, Galactus, to talk about him for a second, Galactus is he was a scientist called Galen who was on this planet that was about to expire, or there was like a weird virus thing going on, and the universe was collapsing in on itself, and blah blah blah. He manages to escape the destruction of his planet, but gets caught in this kind of vortex explosion thing, and gets combined with something called the sentience of the universe, which is like almighty cosmic power, and comes out the other end of it as Galactus, this kind of demigod-like universal cosmic force. You know, he turns into this massive sort of giant figure, and Galactus, in order to survive, needs to devour the energy of worlds. He needs to consume planets to keep himself alive and keep him going, which is where his little subtitle, Galactus the Devourer of Worlds, comes from. Is it Devourer of Worlds? The Devourer, Galactus the Devourer. So that's sort of the broad introduction, comic book lore-wise, to both the two characters. Galactus has had a group of characters through the years. He has what's called his Herald, the Herald of Galactus, who's like his little scout who goes out into the universe to hunt out potential feeding grounds for Galactus, you know, to find planets that are worthy of his consumption. And Galactus's view, there's a very famous quote from an early appearance of Galactus where he says, you know, would you think twice about stepping on an ant? Because from my perspective, consuming a planet and eating all the life that exists on that planet, that's what it is. It's tantamount to me stepping on an ant or destroying an anthill, you know. To which at the time the Silver Surfer says, you know, does not an ant have the right to live also? But I'll talk about the Heralds and the Silver Surfer a little bit more in a minute in terms of my character speculation. The one massive clue, I suppose, we have is the artwork that they're using in the promotional material. I'll put it back up on over there in a moment. This is an Alex Ross piece of artwork that is taken from a comic book miniseries in the mid-90s called Marvels. And the Marvels comic book miniseries in its own right is quite notable because it follows the story of a photojournalist called Phil. He's an everyman character. You know, he has a wife, he's got 2 children, and he lives and works in New York City, and he is just trying to get on with his normal everyman life while all this kind of superhero craziness is happening on the island of Manhattan that surrounds him, and he's, you know, involved in the kind of newspaper interpretations of the characters, and it's a fascinating miniseries. They've done more since because it looks at this kind of view of you know, he was a bad guy, now he's a good guy, but now he's a bad guy again. Oh, but he was brainwashed and mind controlled by a telepath, and you know, this kind of weird confusion and feelings of insignificance or you know, the terror of an attack on the city and all this kind of stuff. And the picture that they're using is a piece of Alex Ross artwork, which is taken through the lens of Phil's camera in the story of Marvels, which is reinterpreting the Fantastic Four's first ever encounter of Galactus in issue 48, 49, and 50 of Volume 1. So it may well be that the storyline that it's kind of drawing upon and some of the stuff that it'll focus upon will be that very first Galactus encounter. You know, and again, I'll stress, you know, this is all speculation on my part. It's wild assumption and crazy speculation. But if I was a betting man, that's kind of where I'd put my money down. So the only other thing of note really in the solicits is that it mentions Doctor Doom. Doctor Doom, another extremely popular antagonist in the Marvel Universe, and has been one of the Fantastic Four's most long-standing villains. He is the ruler of a fictional nation called Latveria. He's Reed Richards is somewhat equal in terms of intelligence, but he has all these kind of nefarious schemes. He wants power. He's in the pursuit of power, and he was faced off against the Fantastic Four many times through the years. But he is. I talked a lot about Doctor Doom in the Secret Wars video, in fact. So if you want to go back and take a look at that installment, you'll hear some of my chatter about Doctor Doom. But what that implies in the Solicits information is that they're casting the net a little wider than just the kind of direct Fantastic Four versus Galactus experience, which is interesting because, and I'll talk about this again a little bit more in the next section about the character speculation, but you might immediately assume that some of the more kind of cosmic, spacey elements of the Marvel Universe that the Fantastic Four engaging in their narratives might be the focus of the set, but the mention of Doctor Doom makes me wonder if it's going to also have some of the more classic Fantastic Four villains, and which is also something that indicates to me they might be going for a kind of more broadly themed set, and a more broadly kind of Fantastic Four-y themed set. So there you go. There's a little bit of comic book lore, very much scratching the surface there of who these characters are and what they're all about. But it's about all I got in the back pocket when there's not really a clear storyline to attach to the set, unlike other sets. Let's now move on and talk a little bit about some of the characters I think we might see as a result. Guessing game then, the Dice Masters character speculation. I really enjoy playing this game. I know many of you folks out there like playing this game too, so if you've got any thoughts about characters that you know are popular Fantastic Four related characters that you think might be in the set, then please do let me know in the comments down below. While I'm very quickly on the subject of the comments, also if you enjoy what we're doing here at the Ministry of Dice, please take the time to give us a thumbs up on the video, and if you're not already subscribed, please do so. We know from the stats that there are 40% of you out there watching these vids who are not subscribers, so please do take the time to hit that subscribe button. It really helps us out, and it helps us secure a future continuing to do content of this type. Okay, now on to the characters. Now I've done that little pluggy bit. So clearly the set is going to be including a Reed Richards Mr. Fantastic, a Johnny Storm Human Torch, a Ben Grimm The Thing, and a Sue Storm Invisible Woman. It would be ridiculous if it didn't. So the core Fantastic Four team, and the title suggests, and the little blurb around the solo play variant suggests that there's going to be a Galactus character or a Galactus card. Now this may not be the case. It very much depends how they set up the solitaire variant of the game, but I think it's a fairly safe assumption that there's going to be a Galactus character of some form appearing in there that you'll be competing against in the solo play variant, but that will also be usable in the constructed, standard two-player format. So a Fantastic Four and a Galactus, I think, are givens. I'd be surprised, but it's not out of the realms of possibility. I'd be surprised if there wasn't a Franklin Richards and a Valerie Richards. Now, these are Sue Storm and Reed Richards' children, and they've been a big part of the Fantastic Four narrative for decades now, although they never seem to fully grow up. Franklin, he's a mutant. He has these incredible reality bending superpowers. He's incredibly powerful. He's what's described as an Omega mutant, and so he has a huge amount of potential, in terms of what he's going to be in the future as he grows up and his powers grow even further, as they often do for mutants as they mature. Valerie, she doesn't have any kind of physical powers of that nature, but she has this incredible intellect that they've often wondered and hypothesized whether it's not just a natural gift, although she is the child of Reed Richards and Sue Storm, who are incredibly intelligent parents. Reed Richards especially as this kind of mad science dude, but whether there's something mystical or mythical or scientifically imbued that gives her intelligence, but she can do these incredible things and has been able to from a very young age. So I'd be surprised if there wasn't the children in the set, but it's not out of the realms of possibility that they're not. They may, or versions of them may appear in the Secret Wars set as well. Although, this whole simultaneous release thing is making me wonder whether the Fantastic Four related characters will be in the Fantastic Four vs Galactus set, and the Secret Wars will not focus on them so much. But we'll see. I certainly threw them in my speculation around the Secret Wars set. So that's your kind of core Fantastic Four kind of stuff there. You've also got some really interesting characters that are ancillary to the Fantastic Four. You've got the Herbie Bot, which is this kind of helper robot that Reed Richards has created. And there's been, childcare versions and little technical support versions and all kinds of these different versions of Herbie Bots. So maybe we'll see a Herbie Bot for a bit of a kind of fun character there. A very popular element of the Fantastic Four. Little known fact for the viewers there, actually, the Herbie Bot wasn't originally in the comics. It was introduced as some comic relief for a cartoon version of the Fantastic Four in the 70s, and it proved so popular that they then rolled it into the main comic book continuity, which has happened a few times in the world of comic books. So you've got the Herbie Bot there. The Fantastica, maybe an opportunity for an action dice. We've not seen some action cards for a while. So the Fantastica, there was this kind of mysterious, mythical version of a Fantastica that was seen many, many years ago that was intended for release, but then never actually happened due to some of the licensing challenges that Wizkids had using the Fantastic Four. So maybe they'll just, reinvigorate that, bring that back to life, or perhaps a new version that they'd not already prepared. But we may see some stuff like that. And there's all, because there's such a kind of science, technology focus around Reed Richards and a lot of what he does, there could be any number of kind of action cards that are introduced. The least of which could be the famous Baxter Building, which is where the Fantastic Four reside, their home base, and we've definitely seen things like the Hellfire Club and Xavier's Mansion and so on and so forth, and the Blackbird from the X-Men stuff. So maybe we'll see that with the Fantastic Four stuff. And in terms of the solitaire play experience, that would be fun, to get your Reed Richards, your Johnny Storm, your Ben Grimm, your Sue Storm, a Fantastica to put them all in, a Herbie Bot, a Franklin and a Val sort of thing going on these fantastic adventures. So that's your kind of core. You've also got some other interesting ancillary characters like the Inhumans. So the Fantastic Four have had a long-standing relationship with the Inhumans. Johnny Storm was in a relationship with Crystal from the Inhumans. They've also, Medusa has been a large character. She was actually a Fantastic Four villain originally as part of the Fearsome Five team, and that was put together by the Wizard, and I've forgotten the line. They've changed the lineup so many times, but I've forgotten the original lineup. But the Wizard was definitely in the mix. So we may see some Inhumans in there. That'd be great to see for the game. The Inhumans is definitely one of the affiliations that has been underserved through the history of Dice Masters, and there's only a handful of characters right now. So it'd be great to see some characters with the Inhuman affiliation. But yeah, they've been very heavily involved in Fantastic Four related storylines, and as I say, Johnny Storm had a relationship with Crystal, who's an Inhuman. Medusa's a big part. So I'd love to see something along those lines. Speaking of other kind of wider Marvel characters who got a start in the kind of Fantastic Four world, Namor, however you pronounce it, the Submariner, it has been really entangled and entwined with the Fantastic Four through the years. The least of which is because Namor's a horny dude, and he's had the hots for Sue Storm, although she's not the only female super character that he's had the hots for through history, that's for sure, because there's a period of time where he was cracking onto the White Queen with the X-Men, Emma Frost, that I know of, and I'm sure there's many, many more. But he was an antagonist, a villain for the Fantastic Four in the early days during the Stan Lee, Jack Kirby. He's obviously flip-flopped in terms of villain, hero, so on and so forth. So it'd really be interesting to see if he gets introduced. Obviously, we mentioned Doctor Doom earlier. One aspect of the Doctor Doom way of doing things is that he has these things called Doom bots, which are these kind of like Nick Fury's life model decoys. He makes these kind of robot versions of himself that are really strong and super powerful and help him police the nation of Latveria, but also help him put his nefarious schemes into play. So we might see a Doctor Doom, but we might also see a Doctor Doom Doombot. So that's a good one. The Skrull, going into the more kind of cosmic side of things, which the Galactus aspect of the set might be indicating. We've got the Skrull, who have been a long-standing antagonist, long-standing villains of the Fantastic Four, specifically a character called the Super Skrull, who was this kind of genetically engineered Skrull who was designed to precisely defeat the Fantastic Four, so he can stretch and turn himself invulnerable and strong like Ben Grimm and do fireballs and stuff. And he replicates their powers. So the Skrull and the Super Skrull, not only are they a likelihood or a possibility because of their relationship to the Fantastic Four as a set of Fantastic Four villains, but also because of that wider, perhaps cosmic tone that the set may adopt through the Galactus relationship. And while I'm on that subject, I'll quickly mention, I brought them up earlier on, the Heralds of Galactus. You know, I mentioned Galactus has this kind of scout character that goes out and investigates planets, tries to find these feeding grounds so that Galactus can come along and devour these planets to sustain himself. Silver Surfer is the most famous of those, and he features in the promotional image that they've used. So the Silver Surfer, he comes to Earth before Galactus in that initial storyline as the Herald of Galactus, and then comes to realise through the human relationships that he develops while here on Earth that what Galactus is doing is wrong, and he kind of shifts his kind of agenda and his focus there. But he's not the only Herald of Galactus that we know of. In fact, there's been loads. I must admit that my understanding of Galactus's heralds is limited because I've only seen a few through some of the various titles that I've read. But there's certainly the Fallen One, who was Galactus's first ever herald. Ironically enough, got dismissed and was no longer Galactus's herald when Galactus realised that he was too evil. I've never read that storyline. I don't really know the context of that. I just know the kind of limited backstory from times it's been referenced, you know, in later comic books. But Galactus's herald was too mean. You've got, let me think now, you've got the Airwalker. He was seen in the second Fantastic Four appearance of Galactus, and he was a herald. Turned out he was a robot a bit later on. Again, I must apologize. It was bound to happen. We were bound to come across some comic book lore that I was less familiar with, I suppose. If you're a long-standing viewer, it may surprise you to know, but some of this stuff I'm less familiar with. You have Nova, who was a Herald of Galactus. She was a human character. The Fire Lord, he's quite well known. Who's the ethereal, shiny kangaroo-like lady? Once again, folks, a shining example of Ministry Dice preparation before we hit the record button. I can't remember the name of the ethereal kind of kangaroo fish combo-looking, hybrid-looking character, but that was another one. Terax the Tamer, he's well known as well. So loads of these heralds, and I just wonder in terms of the solitaire gaming experience, because it talks about ramping up can you defeat Galactus, and can you defeat, with the ramping up of the challenge, whether the villainous team, you'll have to face the Silver Surfer before you can then go on and defeat Galactus, or you'll have to face the Fallen One or Airwalker before you have to go on and defeat Galactus. But the likelihood of maybe a herald, at least the Silver Surfer at the bare minimum, I think is likely in terms of the set. So, from my speculation and wild assumption point of view, I think we're going to see some heralds, or at the very minimum, we're going to see the Silver Surfer. Now, how further wide they cast the net beyond that, I don't know. I mean, certainly the reference to Doctor Doom makes me wonder if we're going to see some more stuff outside of directly the Fantastic Four and Galactus. So, there's been some villains. You've got the whole negative zone kind of stuff with the Fantastic Four, which is a kind of this kind of dimensional alternative universe space that creates life through negative energy, whereas in our core universe it's created through positive energy, and the ruler of that negative zone area is called a nihilus, and he's this kind of like insect hive mind leader, and he's come close to literally destroying the universe and taking it over and feeding on everything with his little kind of insect creatures many times. So whether we'll see some negative zone stuff and villains like a nihilus is yet to be seen, but the fact they've referenced Doctor Doom means we can't take some of these other Fantastic Four villains off the table. A very early days classic Fantastic Four villain like the Mole Man, perhaps, or the Wizard, or the Molecule Man. Again, I'm not really going into a lot of detail on these because I'm conscious of the video length, but we could see some of these kind of more classic, I suppose, feet on the ground, earthly villains, you know. And the who's that doctor guy who has the android? The weird robot with the square head. Okay, somebody out there watching this will know the Fantastic Four better than me. Please do let us all know in the comments below who that guy is. So there's lots of kind of villains that they could be drawing upon. I've mentioned the Inhumans, but other human allies that are kind of from that wider net casting. This has been rather unstructured, this one, hasn't it? A little bit scattershot. So I'll wrap it up in a sec. But Black Panther, you know, Wakanda and the Black Panther first appeared with the Fantastic Four. We might see some stuff on that front. We may see, like Agatha Harkness, who's a famous character. I've talked a little bit about Agatha Harkness when I did the Avengers Disassembled OP kit retrospective. She is this like really super old witch character who was, you know, one of the original witches from the Salem witch trials, and she as well as training Scarlet Witch in the kind of mystical arts and having a relationship with Doctor Strange and all that, she was Franklin and Val's nanny for a period of time and was charged with protecting them while the Fantastic Four were off doing, you know, super team superhero-y stuff. Oh, sorry about that. Notification, I'll check that out in a minute. So you've got characters like Agatha Harkness, Thor, you know, they've had lots of team-ups with Thor through the years. They've had lots of team-ups with Spider-Man through the years as well. In fact, Spider-Man was a member of the Fantastic Four for a period of time after Johnny Storm was out the picture for a variety of reasons. And that's also something to think about, possibly. Again, I'm conscious of the time, so I'm just going to rattle through my wish list stroke speculation list. That Wolverine has been a Fantastic Four member. The She-Hulk led a version of the Fantastic Four at one point. Crystal joined the team at one point. You know, there's been all these different people who've come in and out of the roster, depending on a variety of things that are taking place in the kind of storyline of the Fantastic Four at the time. So it's not out of the realms of possibility that once again we're going to see some new versions of characters that have already been pretty well served by the Game and Dice Masters if they look into that wider, you know, kind of New York superhero club kind of thing that the Fantastic Four, being based out of New York, are involved in, you know. So there we go. I'm going to wrap that up there. I know I fired just a load of sort of comic book character names out over there. Please do go and take a look and find out. Maybe if I get a chance, I'll put a reading list together or something in the description of the video. But that's my speculation list of some of the things that I think we may see in that set or are a possibility of being seen in that set. I'll reiterate, let me know in the comments down below what your thoughts are. Well, there we are then, folks. That brings us to the end of my Fantastic Four vs Galactus preview. I hope you enjoyed watching. A little bit more kind of scattershot and random in terms of the character speculation, but I'll reiterate, if you've got any thoughts, pop them in the comments below. Keep an eye out for the DC Dice Masters Superman Kryptonite Crisis preview that's coming down the pipeline. Fingers crossed if a few things pan out, so keep your fingers crossed for me. I might have something a little special for that one. Might. That's not a certainty, but there may be something a little extra spicy in that one there. There might not be, though, just to manage expectations, but hopefully something will come to fruition in time for that. Ooh, that was intriguing and spoilerful, wasn't it? Speaking of intriguing, what an intriguing set the Fantastic Four vs Galactus is going to be. I can't wait to see what the solo play variant is all about and how that works and operates. So we've got a bit of a wait on our hands before that, but I hope you're as excited as I am to see that. But in the meantime, I've been Chris, otherwise known as online as the True Mr. Six, and I'll catch you on a podcast, on another video, or on a blog post over at BritRoller6.com sometime soon. Thanks for watching.